Welcome back. On today's episode, I will be revealing the 10 players, the 10 people who I think have the most pressure on them heading into this NFL season and what I think they need to do in order to be, deemed as a success or at least not a failure. So stay tuned after the break. All right. So to start off, I don't have an individual. I have a team full of individuals who I all think have a lot of pressure on them. And that's the Rams. This is on paper probably one of the two or three most talented teams in the 21st century. They're incredible. They have Pro Bowlers at every single position on the field. Um, Health is going to be the only thing that can really get in the way of them at least being in the conference championship game where they would probably be favored. I think the Seahawks are better. They are getting pretty banged up, Seattle. So, we'll see about them. But really, I think only the Eagles or Seahawks could even cause them any problems in the NFC. And, which means they need to get it done. And there's really no excuse outside of injuries for them to come up short. And could potentially be Matthew Stafford's last season. It'll certainly be his best chance. We'll see if he's able to stay healthy. Puka Nacua, he has some off the field issues. We'll see if he can put that behind him, if he can stay out there consistently. Devontae Adams, chance to get his Super Bowl. Myles Garrett, chance to get a Super Bowl. He's finally out of Cleveland. Sean McVay, he needs a second one to move himself into a new class of coach. He can start getting in the all-time range of an all-time great coach. You can't really be there with just one Super Bowl. There's just a lot of players who all have a lot riding on this year. They're part of the super team, if you want to call it that. They're incredibly talented, and it's time to get it done. There's really no excuse. They need to show up, and they need to win. So I have them as the clear-cut number one. That they have more pressure on them than any other team. Right? Most of the players on the Rams have more pressure on them than any other player. So they need to win. Second, I have Josh Allen. Every single year, we have to tell ourselves that he's the best quarterback. Everyone's been telling me he's better than Mahomes. Whenever he loses, it's never his fault. But whenever they win, it is his fault. He's had more talent than Mahomes or a lot of other quarterbacks have every year of his career. But, everyone blames everyone else in the team when he loses. This is his year. Mahomes last year was out, tore his ACL, didn't have to deal with the Chiefs who beat you every year in the playoffs. The wide open slate, and he choked and turned it over a million times against the Broncos. Lost to Bo Nix. This year, brought in his offensive coordinator. Apparently, it was McDermott's fault. So they moved off him. I think the defense probably will be a little worse now, actually, now that they moved off of him. So more of the pressure is going to go on Allen. It's going to be an offensive coach team. That's going to be the predominant side of the ball. So it's up to him to go get it done. Mahomes coming off an injury. The Chiefs have no weapons outside of Kenneth Walker, who I feel good about. We'll see if Cyrus Allen can be something. Maybe Xavier Worthy can finally put it together and stay healthy. But I think this is going to be a bit of a rebuilding year for Chiefs. They need to add more weapons. I still have them as, I'd still pick the Chiefs to go to the Super Bowl just because I think Mahomes is brilliant. But, on paper, Bills certainly have more talent there. So the Chiefs shouldn't on paper be the big threat to you. You should be able to beat them. I don't think the Pats are an elite team. I think they're beatable. Mike Vrabel is on this list later down as well. I think this is a big year for him. So there's pressure in New England. Drake May, the season didn't end great last year. I think there's some doubt about his brilliance if he's truly great. I think he is. I think the schedule argument against the Patriots was stupid. But it's out there. People do doubt him. So, you should be able to beat them. Broncos and Bo Nix, I have a million doubts there. The Ravens, the only person who's choked more than you have in the playoffs is Lamar Jackson. So that's not a threat. I can't find the team where you should go into that game. And when they lose, blame should not fall at Josh Allen's feet. Every single one of these teams, if he's as great as he is, should be able to beat them. And he hasn't been able to do it yet. 0 Super Bowl appearances. But, apparently he's the best player in the league. So go win. And third, I have Justin Herbert. Look, Oregon guy, love the dude. he has done nothing in his entire career in the playoffs. We're talking about Josh Allen. I'm making fun of Josh Allen not getting the Super Bowl. Justin Herbert can't win a playoff game. And yes, there's injuries. The Chargers offensive line's always banged up, but when they're healthy, you have two of the best tackles in the league. So far, they're healthy this year. You're going to have good play calling. You have some decent weapons. I like Ladd McConkey. He's a guy who's always open. They're going to be able to run the ball. They're well coached. Defensively, I think they're going to be very good. They have a good pass rush. They're good against the run, I think, this year. Everything's out in front of you, man. You got to go get it done. A great regular season will help. I think he can put up great regular season numbers. I think he'll probably be an MVP at least through the midpoint of the season. He'll be in the MVP conversation. We'll see if he can end the season there. But really, all that matters is you have to win at least one playoff game. We have to see that Justin Herbert can win a playoff game as an NFL starting quarterback. And until that happens, no matter how high we want to rank him and how gorgeous of a ball he throws and how the nerds love him and he has a super high QBR and, I like him too, but you have to win a game even if the circumstances are stacked against you and it's not going your way, you got to find a way to winning. That's what Mahomes and Brady and the greats do every time. Get it done at least once, and then we can put you in the top 5. 4th, I have Mike Vrabel. Obviously, the off the field issues, we'll see if that's a huge distraction. But even if it's not, and they struggle this year and have a little bit of a regression from last year, I think he's going to be the fall guy for it. And they love him there. So I don't think they actually would fire him. I don't think he's actually coaching for his job here if the season goes wrong. But the narrative, he'll get the blame. And I just don't think that's where you want to be. You have a young quarterback. The vibe should be positive. I don't think you want to bring on any extra negative baggage when you're trying to build up a young quarterback and everyone should be rowing the same direction. They need to be good. I don't think they want to end in a situation where at the end of the year they struggled and Mike Vrabel, the drama there is going to continue. Put it this way, the worse they are, the more the off the field stuff is going to be part of the dialogue. And that's just not a place you want to be as the head coach. They're supposed to shield the team from as much drama as they can because the players find themselves enough of it. So you certainly do not want it be coming from the top down. And that's why I have him 4th. I think it's a big year for them. He needs to do well. Big year for Drake May as well. I don't think it's fair because I think he's very good. And if they struggle a little bit this year, I don't think it's entirely his fault. But it definitely left a bad taste in people's mouth how the season ended last year. And people love tearing down everyone's favorite pick. So now that he's made it to the top, people are going to start coming for you. So I think he needs to do well. The Patriots need to have a big year in order to avoid a lot of the criticism I think they're going to face. 5th, I have CJ Stroud. He was abysmal last year in the playoffs. I think that defense Houston had was elite. I think maybe the second best in the league behind the Seahawks. They were phenomenal. I thought they should have won that game against New England, to be honest, if he just didn't turn the ball over a million times. I've always been a CJ Stroud fan. I thought he was good. I think there's a really gorgeous ball. He's accurate. In the past, I thought he made pretty good decisions. But he had really struggled the regular season last year. And, he had no help. I get it. It banged up receivers. The offensive line is never good. They couldn't run the ball very effectively, so he had to drop back and throw in a lot of 3rd and long situations with an offensive line that can't really block and receivers who can't really get open and catch the ball. So it's not his fault. But from where I had him, where I thought of him as a really elite quarterback, those excuses just don't matter. And you got to find a way to win games where at least you're not the reason you lost. And you kind of were the reason Houston lost to New England. At the very minimum, if you're an elite quarterback, you have to give your team every chance to win. And then if you come up short because you don't have enough talent around you, so be it. But last year, the team showed up. It was kind of your fault you lost that game. So that obviously can't happen. And I don't think it will. I think he's going to bounce back as well. But I think he's warranted of a top 5 position here where he needs to show up. I think this is kind of a fork in the road year for him where he either comes back and reminds people that he's a top quarterback and you can win playoff games and he's a franchise quarterback, or we're going to start getting in an uncomfortable position where, are they committed to him long term? You just don't want to be there. So he needs to bounce back. Sixth, this might be a little controversial, but I have Aaron Rodgers. I think this guy's done more to ruin his legacy over the last 5-6 years than maybe outside of Bill Belichick, whose last 5 years have not gone super well. Uh, Aaron Rodgers he's still a Hall of Famer, first ballot, he's a made man, but he was I think most people really liked him. He was kind of the people's choice in the stupid Brady Rodgers argument where people liked Rodgers and they thought he was the more exciting player and they enjoyed watching him play. And I think a lot of people liked his personality pre 2020. Since then, he even had those 2 good years where he won MVPs there. He was a phenomenal player late in his career in Green Bay towards the end there. But since leaving Green Bay, things have just not gone well. Whether he tears his Achilles in the first play of the game when he goes to the Jets, that's after the whole COVID thing where he lied about getting vaccinated and all that bullshit. He got in the stupid fight with Jimmy Kimmel, trying to say Kimmel was on the Epstein list and all that stupid stuff. Whether now it's him trying to attack Fauci and him doing the I told you so thing. People are sick of you. And this is going to be your last year. Do you want to ride off in the sunset as the asshole who no one likes anymore and who kind of ruined his legacy, not from what he accomplished and not where people are going to think of you in terms of your talent, but just where you're no longer liked? And when people hear Aaron Rodgers, they have a bad reaction. I don't think you want to be there. You're one of the most talented quarterbacks to ever play the game. You are phenomenal at your best. You should be remembered as an all-time great quarterback, not as an asshole who couldn't win, who only got to 1 Super Bowl, who torpedoed some of your more talented teams, who did not show up in several playoff games when you had a team good enough to make it to the Super Bowl, and who kind of just bounced around from team to team towards the end of your career, who no one liked. I don't think you want to be there. I think big season for him. If he plays well, Steelers can make the playoffs. I don't think they have to win a game. Just get in the playoffs, play reasonably well, and I think you'll go down. You'll be warmer in people's hearts than if you struggle this year. So I have him 6th. 7th, I have Jalen Hurts. This, I think, is a little unfair. He's made it to 2 Super Bowls. I thought he played very well in both Super Bowls. There is no question he had a lot of talent around him, and I don't think he's the reason they got to those Super Bowls. I don't even think the offense is the reason they got to those Super Bowls. Both years had elite defenses. But, I'll admit, I watch him play and I don't see an elite quarterback there. I think the way that they coach feels like they're kind of protecting him. How slow they are, how few plays they run, how predictable the offense is. It's not entirely his fault. The tush push is an incredibly effective play that just kind of sucks to watch. And I think everyone wants it banned from the league. It's not fun. And it does not show off his throwing capabilities. And whether it's fair or not, I think people struggle to see him completing the big clutch throws to end a game. And if they're in a 2-minute drill here and they're down 4, they need a touchdown. I don't think many people are going to have a lot of faith that they're going to come through. They rely on the run game heavily. He's had elite receivers, and it's never really clicked. I think some of that's the coaching, to be fair. Some of that's the receivers. But it just doesn't, for how successful he is and the Eagles are, they just never seem to be happy. They always seem to be fighting. There never seems to be, they never seem to have completely trusted Jalen Hurts. He seems like a great leader and a great guy, which is why I think it's weird that they don't trust him. Because he seems like someone you'd have a lot of faith in and who's mentally going to be prepared and have you guys in a good spot. But it just feels like they protect him constantly. They don't want to open up the playbook. Their offense has been abysmal with how much talent they have. Their offensive line is elite. And then even when they got injured last year, their backups are still better than most team starters. So that's not really an excuse. Um, it's just weird that they're so bad offensively consistently with how much talent they have. And the common denominator is kind of him. So, and I don't think Philly loves him. So I think this is the big year where you need to show up and you need to play well. And if you don't, I think there are going to be really uncomfortable conversations at the end of the year about whether or not they want to stick with you long term. Because Philly has shown that they'll move off a quarterback who's had a lot of past success recently. Carson Wentz had some recent success before they moved off of him. Look back in the past. McNabb. I mean, there's been good quarterbacks who 2 years from their peak, they're like, we're done. Well, we'll see what happens there, but I think he needs to play well. Eighth, I have another quarterback. I have Joe Burrow. He's one of the best pure passers of the ball. He's one of the best pocket passers I've seen in a long time. He was clutch for a minute there. It looked like he was going to have a real legitimate rivalry with Mahomes and the Chiefs. Not entirely his fault. That didn't play out. The defense really struggled. They missed some big draft picks. The offensive line was never great, and he doesn't have the escapability like a Mahomes or Josh Allen does, where he really needs a good offensive line. Just hang back there and throw the ball. He has two incredible receivers, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and obviously he's put up incredible numbers with them. But paying all three of those guys as much money as they're paying them has also resulted in not having as good of an offensive line, not having as good of a defense. So I can't really, he's not absolved from the blame here because the money he's taking with their two receivers results in them having less talent in other positions. So that's a choice they made. I am sure he wanted to bring back those receivers. So he's partly responsible for that. And now this is the bed you made. So you need to go find a way of getting it done and winning. And I think the defense is going to be a little better up front. I like their interior defensive line. I like the Lawrence trade from the Giants. We'll see about their edge rushers. I don't know. I think there's some upside there. And the secondary, they could be better. Leaves a lot to be desired. But there's some talent. And offensively, I think your offensive line should be a little better. I think they need to run the ball more. They become pretty predictable offensively, but they're just so talented at the receiver position, and he's so accurate that even when the defense knows what's coming, they still are remarkably efficient there. I just think they need to be a little more diverse offensively, and he needs to stay healthy. He takes a lot of big hits, but part of that is the way he plays. The offensive line is, it's not an elite unit, never has been or probably will be. So he's going to have to change the way he plays. He's going to have to get the ball out quicker. He and Zach Taylor are going to have to do a better job of scheming people open early and relying less on this downfield passing attack where it takes a long time to develop. You're asking a lot from your offensive line. When you don't run the ball well either, you don't have a lot of play action pass, that struggles. So you struggle there. So the defense able to pin their ears back and get after the quarterback. And you're going to have to find a way to adjust and win games because you're going to be in your 30s soon. Like, it's time to win. You've been to one Super Bowl. For all the early success you've had, you've not even made it to the playoffs the last several years. You've basically been an afterthought in the league. And I don't think things are going to get better. You've already had major injuries in your career. I don't think you're going to get healthier in your 30s. So now's the time. You got to put it together, make a run, get to the playoffs, and start gaining some more career momentum again, because you've really kind of floundered the last couple of years. And it's not all your fault. A lot of it's a team, but being the quarterback, you're going to get a lot of the blame. In ninth, I have the Niners. A couple years ago, this team kind of felt like the Rams now, where they had just so much talent, a lot of big name stars on both sides of the ball. They're getting older now. They've lost some of those big names. Shanahan, car accident, that's not ideal. I feel like for being like the loved coach in the league for a couple years there, he's kind of not the hot guy anymore. I think a lot of people probably consider him to be the third best coach in his own division now, behind McVay and McDonald, on their two sides of the ball, respectively. And it just feels like kind of the last run here. Even though Brock Purdy's not super old, he does get injured a lot. Um, Trent Williams, our offensive lineman, he's ancient. He's one of the best tackles ever, but he was a played the Reagan administration at this point. George Kittle's coming off a major injury. We'll see what he can do. Christian McCaffrey, he's still incredible, but he's taken so many hits. I think he gets hit one more time, his leg might fall off. We'll see how long he has. I don't love the receiver room. Ricky Pearsall, obviously, he's struggling with his health. Some of it not his fault, obviously. Um, that's not ideal. Defensively, Nick Bosa, still pretty solid. He's not the player he was, but he's very expensive, so they need him to play very well. He's getting older. I don't think he has a lot of great years ahead of him. Fred Warner's coming off injury. He's still very good. I don't think he's quite as peak anymore, but he's very expensive as well. They just have a lot of older guys with big names who we're getting towards the end of it where they never seem like they're healthy. I think probably money-wise, they're going to have to make some big decisions this upcoming offseason and seeing if they're going to move off a couple of these dudes. So it just kind of feels like the last run here for this core group of guys who, for some of them, like Nick Bosa and Fred Warner and stuff, and George Kittle, really it started in like 2019, way back with Jimmy G, when they blew that Super Bowl to Patrick Mahomes, the first one in the COVID year, or right before COVID, excuse me. So it's been, practically a decade now of this group of guys being really talented, occasionally make it to the Super Bowl, coming up short, but flaming out a lot of other years with catastrophic injuries. And I think if you told the Niner fans back in 2019 that you're going to have this core group of super talented players for the next 7 years, they're all still going to be on the team, and you only made it to 2 Super Bowls, you lost both, you kind of choked both to Mahomes, and you weren't going to have any rings to show for it. You were going to miss the playoffs a couple times. You were going to have catastrophic injuries. I think people would have been kind of disappointed. So I think this may be the last chance to salvage this, it's not a dynasty, but group of really talented players. It might be their last chance to accomplish something. So we'll see. They're in a really tough division. I think Rams and Seahawks are both better than them. I don't know, but a lot of pressure there, I think. 10, I have Jaden Daniels. I love Jaden. I think he's awesome. I think he's a really good dude. I like watching him play. I think he's really talented. I just think he was everyone's kind of favorite quarterback, similar to RG3 was in his first couple years in Washington before this catastrophic injuries happened to him. I think we're starting to get similar vibes, or at least people are worried that this could be how Jaden Daniels' career goes, where he started out really exciting, but he was too thin. He took too many hits and just wasn't able to stay healthy. And his career he peaked really early and his career was really short. I hope that's not the case. I really like him. I like a lot of these Washington players. I think, I think they're coached well. I think it's important that team's good. I think the league's better when Washington matters. That's a storied franchise. It's a big fan base. I just think the league's better when Washington is good and when they have a good rivalry going with the Eagles and Cowboys and Giants and stuff. It just sucks when they're bad. Especially, I feel bad for the fans. They had to deal with just an awful owner for years and years. And now that they finally sold to seemingly a pretty good owner, they had a really exciting young quarterback. It would just suck if they get cursed again and he can't stay healthy and they ultimately don't end up achieving anything with him. And also, I don't really care about the whole jersey retirement thing with LSU and him wanting 5 to be retired and, Pickett wearing his jersey number this year. I find it kind of annoying that people are so critical of him complaining about that. I don't care. I think it's kind of cringy to be that upset about someone wearing your jersey number. But, I do get Daniels won a Heisman Trophy there. Joe Burrow, no one's wearing 9. And I understand that Joe Burrow was able to win the national championship there. But, I thought Daniels was damn near as good as Joe Burrow was that year. It wasn't his fault that they sucked in 23 when Daniels won the Heisman Trophy. It was the defense. The defense was abysmal. They were awful. And Brian Kelly just forgot how to coach. Was not Daniels' fault. They scored 1,000,000 points every game. If they had a semi-competent defense, they probably would have been a playoff team. And they probably could have won the championship that year. So I get from his perspective, him feeling like, look, I gave a lot to the school. I won a championship there, or I didn't win a championship there, but I won a Heisman Trophy. Joe Burrow also was a transfer. So people saying like, Jaden McDaniels wasn't like a lifelong LSU guy, so that's why he doesn't have his jersey number retired. That's stupid. Joe Burrow also transferred. He was only there for 2 years. Same as Jaden Daniels. So I get from his perspective, wanting his number retired. I think the whole thing's kind of cringy. I also think Lane Kiffin's kind of an idiot. I don't really know why this is even a problem. You probably should have handled this better, but it is what it is. I think it's kind of annoying. People dislike Jaden Daniels for this, but there is more pressure on him now. I think the vibes have turned on him. I don't think he's the people's quarterback anymore. I think a lot of people want to see him struggle. And Laramie Tunsil being out as left tackle, he was one of the best tackles in the league. Him being out for several months now, that's going to hurt. They brought in Stephon Diggs. We'll see if he has anything left in the tank. I still like Terry McLaurin. I don't think he's quite as good as he was a couple years ago. The run game should be okay. I have real questions about the offensive line. Defensively, I think it should be a bit better, but there's a lot, the rest of that roster leaves a lot to be desired. So he's going to have a big burden to carry there. And, I don't think people are going to be very nuanced if they struggle. Even if he has a good year, but his teammates around him kind of let him down, I think he's going to take a lot of the blame. So in order to not be really on the hot seat next year, I think he needs to have a good season this year to at least quiet some of the hate. But I think he will, by the way. I think Washington's going to be better than people think. I had them making the playoffs. That was before the Laramie Tunsil injury, but I wouldn't bet against him. I really think he's that talented of quarterback. If he can just stay healthy, I think he's phenomenal. I'd much rather have him than Caleb Williams if they're both healthy. Now, that's the big question, health. That matters. You can't just say if they're both healthy because one guy's pretty much always healthy and the other guy's not. So, logically, you probably would want Caleb Williams. But what he did 2 years ago, Jaden Daniels, I thought was really special for being that young, coming in the playoffs, having that kind of control over the offense. He didn't have great weapons on the outside surrounding him. They couldn't really run the ball that well. The offensive line wasn't great. Defensively, they were terrible. And he carried them all the way to the NFC Championship game. And that's more than Caleb Williams can say he's done. And Caleb's had more talent around him, better coaching, better offensive line, better weapons around him. I just think Jaden Daniels is a lot more talented than people give him credit for. So hopefully he can bounce back and have a good year, but I definitely think there's a lot of pressure on him to have a good year. But I think what the list tells you is that there's a lot of quarterbacks this year who really need to have good years. Some of them have had a lot of excuses made for them in the years past, where I think finally the bill is kind of coming due and they need to cash some of these checks. There's some opportunity. I think the AFC is pretty wide open where, if you're Josh Allen or you're Justin Herbert, can you really go another year of, Herbert's case, not winning a playoff game, or in Josh Allen's case, losing to Mahomes again or not getting to the Super Bowl period. I didn't even mention Lamar Jackson because I know it wasn't his fault 2 years ago when they lost the Bills in that playoff game, but he's just been abysmal in the playoffs. Losing the Chiefs 3 years ago was terrible. He's slowing down. He's not the same player he was. I just have zero confidence in him getting the job done in the playoffs. So I don't even have him on the list because I think most people know who he is and have written him off. I know they're super high in Super Bowl odds this year. I believe they're like the second favorite behind the Rams, which I think is insane. They have a rookie head coach. Defensively, I think they should be well coached. I think they leave a lot to be desired in terms of just raw talent. Lamar Jackson's offensive line they should be pretty good protecting him, but I don't love the receivers. I don't love the running backs. I don't even have him on the list because I just think people know who he is, and I'd be shocked if they're in the Super Bowl. Now, I could be wrong, but I would be genuinely shocked if in February they're playing in LA. I just would be mind blown. But crazier things have happened. But I think what it shows you is that it's a wide open AFC. So a lot of players, this is their year. They've had another chance. There is no great team, I don't think, in the AFC. Go for it. Take your chance. Same as Bo Nix. I could throw him in there as well. It's a big year for him and Sean Payton. Obviously, last year was disappointing with how it ended. I think they probably would have won that AFC championship game if Bo Nix was healthy. I didn't think Patriots are very good. I think they would have gotten their asses kicked by Seattle anyways. I think Seattle was going to kill anyone they played. But, getting the Super Bowl would have been nice. So I think there's some pressure on him to win this year as well. I think there's still some questions about how great of a player he actually is. I liked him because he went to Oregon, but I'm not super high on Bo Nix. I think he's a limited player. I wouldn't want to pay him the $50-60 million he's going to want. I just don't think he's that caliber of player. And I think he needs a lot of talent around him. And if you pay him as much as he's going to want, you're no longer going to be able to, provide the elite receivers he has or the good offensive line or having like 4 elite pass rushers and good corners. You're going to have to lose some of those guys. And then more of the burden's going to fall on him. So that's a big year for Denver as a whole to figure out what they want to do long term. I'm just really excited because I think there's a lot of players and a lot of teams who have a lot riding on this year where if they struggle or have a disappointing year, there's going to be like a lot of disappointment and real ramifications where I could see like 6, 7, 8 teams in the AFC. If they don't make it to if they don't advance past the wild card round, I think you're going to be really upset and feel like this was a failure. If you're the Rams, if you don't win the Super Bowl, you're going to think it's a failure. Seattle, I don't know. They won. They're made men. I think they want to go back to back. They struggled. They weren't able to do it last time they won. They're young. I think they'll be better next year, honestly, when some of this older money comes off the books and they'll be able to replenish some of those positions. They're pretty banged up this year, but they're still very talented. They'll be disappointed if they don't win, at least get to the Super Bowl. The Giants have high expectations. The Packers, we'll see if they'll bounce back. The Lions, it seems like it's big year for Dan Campbell there. If they struggle, I could see him on the hot seat. Mike LaFleur in Green Bay, another year. We'll see if he can survive. They struggle. There's a lot of big, famous teams, big brands with big, famous coaches and players who have a lot riding on this year. So I'm excited about that. But those are my 10 who I think have the most pressure heading in. But we'll see. I think several of those guys are going to come up pretty spectacularly short, Josh Allen. And I can't wait to see people try to cover for him again. So thank you for watching.